Once you were accused, you were allowed to deny it, just not for long. The courts did not require immediate confession. They required eventual compliance. If words were not enough, pressure would be applied, carefully, incrementally, until the body agreed. This is how confession was made. Dorothea Flock was brought before the court in Bamberg in 1629. She was accused of witchcraft not because of an act, but because of association. Others had already confessed under pressure, and her name appeared in their testimony. She was said to have attended gatherings, to have known things she denied knowing. Dorothea was pregnant when she was arrested. She denied the accusation. In this court, denial was not proof of innocence. It was proof that further measures were required. The first instrument brought out was not the rope or the boot. It was the finger screws. They were small, 2 iron plates, a threaded bolt between them, no blades, no edges. They were designed not to cut, but to compress. Her fingers were placed between the plates. The screw was turned, slowly, deliberately, a fraction at a time. Pressure came first to the skin, then the muscle beneath it, then the small bones of the fingers were forced to bear the weight. Pain did not arrive all at once. It accumulated. Strength left her hands. Grip failed. Signals misfired as nerves were pressed beyond what they were meant to endure. Her body reacted before her will could. This was not an execution. It was an interrogation. The purpose was not to destroy her hands. It was to force her body to betray her words. The finger screws were considered a mild instrument. They were used before the rope, before the boots. Dorothea did not confess, so the process continued. Not every confession was immediate. Some were incomplete, some were inconsistent, and inconsistency required correction. Margaretha Möckel was accused during the height of the Bamberg trials. Her name surfaced in testimony already extracted from others. She was said to have attended gatherings, to have participated, to have known more than she admitted. She denied it. Under questioning, her answers did not match what the court expected. In the record, this was noted simply as inconsistency. In practice, it meant escalation. The rope was prepared. Her hands were bound behind her back, the wrists crossed. A single line was attached and drawn upward over a beam. When the signal was given, the rope was pulled. Her body left the ground. The shoulders were forced backward beyond their natural limit. The joints bore the entire weight of her suspended frame. Pain did not radiate outward. It concentrated. Ligaments strained. Muscle tore under tension. Breath shortened as the chest was pulled tight. This method had a name, Strappado. It required no blades, no crushing, only gravity and time. Sometimes the body was dropped suddenly, then caught again before it struck the floor. The jolt forced the shoulders further from their sockets. The court called this lawful examination. Margaretha Möckel's answers were judged inconsistent. The court authorized further examination. In Bamberg, that meant the rope. A confession was not enough. The court required detail, not simply admission, but a story that matched what they believed witchcraft looked like. Interrogators were searching for specific elements. They wanted descriptions of a pact with the devil. They wanted to know how he appeared, as a man, an animal, or something in between. They demanded sexual details, whether the devil had taken the accused as a lover, whether demons or spirits had engaged in physical acts with her, whether gatherings involved forbidden relationships, acts outside marriage, or whether the devil had driven women toward other women in defiance of God's design. These were not spontaneous confessions. They were expectations. And when testimony failed to match those expectations, escalation followed. Walpurga Hausmännin was accused in Bavaria of entering into a pact with the devil. She was said to have renounced God, to have attended nocturnal gatherings, to have harmed others through maleficium. Under questioning, she admitted fragments, but she resisted the full script. She denied certain acts. She refused specific sexual descriptions the court expected. She contradicted details already extracted from other prisoners. In the record, this was called obstinacy. Obstinacy authorized the boots. The Schraubstiefel, the screw boot, enclosed the lower leg in iron. 2 rigid plates fitted around the calf. Wedges or threaded screws were inserted along the sides. When tightened, the metal did not strike. It pressed inward. Muscle resisted first, then force transferred to bone. The lower leg offers no joint for relief, only structure forced to carry increasing pressure. Each turn narrowed the space between iron and flesh. The purpose was not immediate destruction. It was endurance. To hold the body in a state where denial became physically unsustainable. Under sustained compression, her confession expanded. She described the devil appearing in human form. She described intimate encounters presented as proof of her pact. She described gatherings where others were named. She described acts of harm that matched the expectations of the court. Details emerged that aligned with what interrogators already believed. The narrative stabilized. The process advanced. The compression could force detail. Suspension could break resistance. But when denial persisted, the court turned to something larger. Not a device for the hand. Not a device for the leg. A device for the entire body. Katharina Henot was arrested in Cologne in 1627. She was not poor. She was not socially isolated. She came from a respected family. Her connections did not prevent accusation. Others, already under torture, named her as complicit in spreading plague through witchcraft. She denied the charge. She denied it again. In Cologne, as elsewhere, denial permitted escalation. Judicial authorization was granted. The rack was prepared. The rack was simple in construction. A wooden frame, rollers at each end, ropes fixed to wrists and ankles. When turned, the rollers rotated in opposite directions. The body lengthened. Not quickly, incrementally. Each rotation increased tension along the spine. Shoulders strained first, then hips. Then the long muscles of the back were pulled beyond their natural limit. Ligaments do not negotiate with torque. They yield or they tear. Joints forced apart lose alignment. Breath becomes shallow as the chest cavity is drawn tight. The body is held in extension, unable to curl, unable to brace, unable to escape its own leverage. This was not rage, it was calibration. The rollers were advanced until resistance faltered, then paused. Questions resumed. Names were requested, specifics demanded. When answers disappointed, the rollers turned again. Katharina Henot's denial did not end immediately, but the court did not require immediate confession. It required eventual compliance. Under sustained extension, the body cannot remain defiant indefinitely. The record moves forward. So did the sentence. By the time Hans Hummel was brought before the court in Bamberg, the pattern was established. Names had already been given under pressure. His appeared in testimony extracted from others. He was accused of attending gatherings, of swearing loyalty to the devil, of participating in acts he denied. He denied the accusation. He denied specific details the court demanded. He refused to describe the pact in the language they expected. In the record, this was noted as stubbornness. Stubbornness authorized examination. The method used was water, not drowning in a river, not execution by immersion. Interrogation. Hans Hummel was restrained. His body secured so movement could not relieve what followed. Water was introduced deliberately, measured, repeated. The body does not distinguish between interrogation and suffocation. When air is denied, instinct overrides will. The throat constricts, the diaphragm convulses, the chest heaves against restraint, Panic is not emotional, it is biological. The body will say anything to restore air. Under repeated suffocation, Hans Hummel's confession expanded. The sentence followed. 5 instruments, 5 methods: compression, suspension, crushing, extension, suffocation, different mechanics, the same objective. These devices were not medieval chaos. They were authorized, documented, applied in sequence, each introduced when denial persisted, each calibrated to extract what the court already believed to be true. We like to imagine that logic, the belief that pain reveals truth, as something buried in the past. But torture was only one half of the system. The other half was language. The words that defined witches, the words that described corruption, the words that demanded confession before guilt was even proven. Next time, we turn to those words, to the text that shaped the interrogations, to the theology that made torture seem reasonable. We will hear passages from the Malleus Maleficarum, the Hexenhammer, read in the voice of its author, Heinrich Kramer. And we will compare them to sermons preached today. Because while the instruments may rust, the language of condemnation evolves. It adapts. It survives. Pain extracts confession. Words justify it. And both leave records.